This is my first video update coming to you from Nicosia, Cyprus on this Tuesday morning. You saw the opening video clip, the video segment, which is going viral now. And it was taken in Rome, I believe. I'm not sure what that building is, but I have heard that it is the EU headquarters in Rome. I can't confirm that, but you can basically see Italian. After the election of Giorgia Meloni, they get up on a ladder and they take down the EU flag and they replace it with an Italian flag. That is the trajectory of things. That is a sign of the times. That's where we're moving towards. And the European Union, well, all of Europe actually, just continues to sink. It continues to slide. We have the euro against the dollar continues to drop. We have the pound, the British pound. Is it at parity yet with the dollar? I haven't checked, but I know it's approaching parity with the USD. I never thought I would actually see that, ever. I always thought of the GBP. Whenever I would think about the British pound, I would always just think of like a 2-to-1 relationship. It was just like kind of automatic for me, just double it whenever I was thinking about pound to dollar. But not anymore. 1-to-1 is what we're looking at now. So things are not looking good for all of Europe. And there's a simple reason for all of that. Very simple reason. They lost their supplier. That's it. Businesses are leaving. A lot of businesses are going to the United States. A lot of businesses and industry is going to Asia. But the basic reason for all of this, the reason why this is happening, is because the continent, Europe, has lost its main supplier of everything that it needs to run. And they did that all on their own. It was a conscious choice. They decided to cut off their supplier without having a backup supplier. Have you ever heard of a situation where a business gets rid of its main supplier without having any other suppliers ready to go? But Europe did it. The EU did it. And it's very easy to destroy things. You can destroy things very quickly and very easily, but to build things, to build industries, that takes a lot of time. And every business, all the industries that are going to leave Europe or are leaving Europe, they're not going to come back. And that supplier that the EU ditched, that they cut off ties with, well, that supplier has products, has goods and services, has commodities, has things that many other buyers will absolutely want to snap up. So all the talk from Van der Crazy and Robert Habeck about alternative supplies of gas and energy and LNG from Qatar and LNG from the United States, it was all a freaking lie. All of it was one big lie. It's called stringing people along. And that is what the European Union, and that is what Van der Crazy, and that is what Habeck, that is what they did to the citizens of Europe, and in Habeck's case, to the citizens of Germany. They strung people along. They made people believe that we can get rid of Russia, no problem. We can get rid of this supplier because we have another supplier who goes by the name of US LNG. or we have another supplier who goes by the name of Qatari LNG. And it was all a lie. It was all a lie. They were stringing people along because they want this deindustrialization. And they continue to string people along. And the situation's not getting better for Europe. You have holes. You have holes in Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2, like under the sea. They have leaks in Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2, just to make sure that those pipelines never run again. And I'll get into that story soon. But you have Christine Lagarde. She rolls in to the European, I believe it's the European Parliament. It's like the European Parliament's this fictitious make-believe parliament that pretends to actually make decisions and pass legislation. It's play acting, though. The European Parliament is complete play acting. But Lagarde, the head of the ECB, the queen neoliberal kleptocrat, Lagarde rolls into the European Parliament, and she says that, and I quote, the outlook for the EU, the outlook is darkening. That is a direct quote. Europe is facing lower than expected economic growth as inflation continues to climb. European Central Bank Chief Christine Lagarde revealed on Monday, explaining that the ECB had raised interest rates by 75 basis points in an attempt to control soaring prices. Speaking before the European Parliament's Committee on Economic and Monetary Affairs on Monday, Lagarde admitted that inflation remains far too high and is likely to stay above our target for an extended period. The ECB chief warned that the economic consequences for the euro area of Russia's unjustified war of aggression on Ukraine had spiraled further since June, a reference to Western sanctions on Russian oil and gas, which have sent fuel prices skyrocketing. Now, why has this spiraled further since June? Well, because the European Union decided to pour on more and more sanctions on Russia because they have no reverse gear. Instead of admitting that they had lost, instead of admitting that they can't sanction their number one, best, most dependable, cheapest supplier of everything, they decided to go in the exact opposite direction and to pour on a fourth and fifth and sixth and seventh sanctions package. And the situation got worse and worse. And the European Union is never going to get out of this mess. Ever, ever, ever. They are never going to get out of this mess until they finally come clean and just admit the truth. Just say the truth. And what is that truth? The truth is that the EU is in this crisis because the EU decided to, number one, not follow the Minsk Accords. Germany and France decided to not follow the Minsk Accords, to not pressure, but to not tell Ukraine to abide by the very document that they were signatories to. France and Germany, they are at fault here. That's reason number one. Reason number two that Europe is in this mess is because Europe was unwilling to tell Zelensky to just be neutral. Once again, that was part of the Minsk Accords. But all they had to do after the fact, after the fact that they were unwilling to abide by the Minsk Accords, they could have just told Zelensky to just say Ukraine was going to be neutral. That's it. They could have done that last year. Zelensky put it in the Ukrainian constitution that Ukraine will remain a neutral country, period. No NATO, no foreign troops, none of that stuff. The European Union was unwilling to do that. And the third reason that the European Union is in this mess is not because of Russia's conflict in Ukraine. It is because the European Union decided to sanction Russia. That's it. It has nothing to do with the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. That's between Russia and Ukraine. It was the European Union's sanction of Russia that has caused this problem, and their refusal to admit defeat. Why did they sanction Russia? Why did they not just tell Zelensky to put it in the Ukrainian constitution, to codify it, that Ukraine was going to become a neutral state? Why did Germany and France not abide, not enforce the Minsk Accords that they themselves signed? Why did all this happen? Well, because the plan was regime change in Moscow. That was the plan all along. And the European Union actually believed, dummies like Lincoln and Sullivan and Newland and the neocons, they actually believed that they would be able to impose a 3 to 4 week shock and awe sanctions campaign on Russia, which would lead to the overthrow of the Putin government, the collapse of the Russian economy, the overthrow of the Putin government, and President Navalny. Navalny, by the way, is actually calling for protests as well. So that just gives you an indication as to the type of people we're dealing with. Navalny is actually calling for Russian citizens to get out on the street and protest the partial mobilization. But that was their plan. Their plan was President Navalny. And then their plan was, we enter Russia just like it was in the 90s. We get all of the natural resources for free. We take it all. And then, once we take all the natural resources, we break up the country into 5 different parts. And I did a video on this about, I want to say, a month and a half, 2 months ago when I was in Athens. And I talked about the maps that were floating around Brussels and in DC of a broken up Russia, a Russia divided into 5 different countries, a balkanized Russia. And they even had a conference in the Czech Republic. I think it was sometime in June, May or June time period, maybe early July, where they actually talked about the breaking up of the Russian Federation. They actually had an event, a 2 to 3 day summit, where leaders in the collective West were strategizing the breakup of the Russian Federation into 5 different pieces. So that was the plan. That is Lagarde speaking to the make-believe parliament of the European Union. And instead of just coming clean and admitting why Europe is undergoing this financial meltdown, she continues to spew out the talking point of, well, this is all because of Russia's terrible invasion of Ukraine. This is all due to Russia's unjustified war of aggression, the unjustified war of aggression on Ukraine. That is why we have to choose to deindustrialize. How does that work exactly? Because Russia invaded a country, according to the European Union, because Russia invaded a country for which the European Union at the time had zero connection to. It wasn't part of the EU. It wasn't part of NATO. Because Russia did this, you have to destroy your own economies. What is the logic to that? There is none. So Viktor Orban, we'll see. We'll see what happens with Orban and Meloni if they can form an alliance. But Viktor Orban has been the only voice of reason with regards to the deindustrialization of Europe and the sanctions that the EU placed on Russia. Which way should we walk? Let's walk this way. Let's walk through the city streets of the old town, Nicosia. So Orban finally gave a speech to his parliament, and he said, everybody in parliament, the sanctions, the European Union sanctions, all of it has backfired. This is someone who admits the truth. This is someone that is not stringing his people along. He is telling his people the truth. Sanctions imposed by the European Union on Russia over its military offensive in Ukraine have backfired, according to Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán, who pointed out that skyrocketing energy prices in Europe were the result of the restrictions. Speaking to Parliament on Monday, the Hungarian leader warned that people should prepare for a prolonged war in Ukraine. He also stated that the EU's response to the conflict was the reason governments across Europe have started falling, referring to Sunday's elections in Italy, where right-wing candidates were expected to take control of the government. We can safely say that as a result of the sanctions, European people have become poorer, while Russia has not fallen to its knees, said Orbán, whose country, like many in the EU, currently faces surging inflation, plunging consumer confidence, and a possible recession. This weapon has backfired. With the sanctions, Europe has shot itself in the foot. We are waiting for an answer. The entire Europe is waiting for an answer from Brussels on how long we will keep doing this, Orbán added. Well, how long? Indefinitely. Indefinitely, until you remove Van der Crazy, Michel, and Borrell, and until you change the entire EU system, if the EU system even needs to exist at this moment in time. But until you reform everything, indefinitely. That's how long. Indefinitely. Because all of the things that Europe built over the past 50 years, these people have destroyed in a matter of 6 months. Not Russia, they destroyed it. 6 months is all it took for Scholz, Annalena Baerbock, and Robert Habeck to destroy Germany. 6 months, that's all it took. Decades and decades of building, and it took these bozos 6 months to destroy. So that is Viktor Orbán, the one last leader in Europe. Hopefully Meloni will give Orbán the support that he desperately needs. And hopefully those two can affect some sort of positive change in Europe. Let's now talk about Edward Snowden. Oh, no. Let's not talk about Edward Snowden. My bad. Let's discuss the story about Nord Stream before we get to Snowden. This is an interesting story. So, Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2, they seem to have a hole, a leak. And this was noticed by German authorities, by the German operator of Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2, by the way. So Nord Stream 2, it may not be operating, but it's got gas. You know, it has gas in it. It's just not flowing. It was about to operate, but they put an end to that. Either way, the operator, the German operator, they noticed that that suddenly the pressure had mysteriously plunged in both Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2. And the reason for this is quite interesting. Well, we don't really know the exact reason, but German authorities are speculating that this was some sort of foul play, some sort of attack. While the loss of pressure in 3 natural gas pipelines between Russia and Germany is still officially being investigated, Berlin is reportedly no longer convinced it was a coincidence and suspects a targeted attack on behalf of either Ukraine or Russia, the newspaper Tagesspiegel reported on Monday evening. Pressure in one of the Nord Stream 2 lines dropped sharply overnight, followed by the same happening to both Nord Stream 1 pipes on Monday afternoon. Denmark announced that a gas leak was spotted off the coast of Bornholm Island in the Baltic Sea and closed the area for maritime traffic, but cannot confirm if this was what caused the pressure loss. According to Tagesspiegel, the German government and agencies investigating the incident can't imagine a scenario that isn't a targeted attack, according to an anonymous source familiar with their assessments. Everything speaks against a coincidence. The outlet explained that a deliberate attack on the bottom of the sea has to involve special forces, Navy divers, or a submarine. Berlin is reportedly examining two possible scenarios. In the first, Ukraine or Ukraine-affiliated forces could be behind the attack. The second option is that Russia did it as a false flag to make Ukraine look bad and drive the EU energy prices even higher. This is not confirmed by government sources. This is according to Tagesspiegel, and they're citing sources that they have in the government and investigating agencies. But look, a leak in Nord Stream 1, a leak in Nord Stream 2. Supposedly, you need some real deep sea divers to cause that leak. This is according to this publication and these sources, and this is not a coincidence that both pipelines started to leak. And so, what is the working theory? Once again, according to this publication, the working theory is that this was either Ukraine or this was either Russia in order to frame Ukraine. So, and when we mean Ukraine, we don't mean Ukraine. We mean Ukraine's allies, i.e., collective West nations that have the capability to actually create this type of leak in Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2 in order to make sure that Germany doesn't get any funny ideas by perhaps wanting to restart Nord Stream 2, or perhaps wanting to mend fences with Russia, given Germany's economic collapse. So this is kind of like the insurance policy to make sure that Germany does not backslide. Right? Let's punch a hole. I don't know where this is or what this is. Okay. Let's punch a hole in Nord Stream 1 and in Nord Stream 2, just in case, to make sure that that Germany doesn't go back on its deindustrialization project. I think this is a fascinating story, and once again, I have to say that this is what I've just read is from one publication. They're citing sources in the government, and they're citing sources in the investigating agencies. We don't know if this is indeed the case. This could have been an accident. This could have been a coincidence that both pipelines suddenly start leaking, perhaps, but maybe not. Maybe this is a message to Germany. We'll find out. We will find out. Maybe we'll find out. Maybe we won't find out. Maybe it's just going to be buried. This incident. So Snowden. Let's talk about Edward Snowden. He's been offered Russian citizenship. That is now official, and he actually applied for citizenship in 2020, from what I understand. And he's now been included in a list of 72 foreigners who have been granted Russian citizenship. President Vladimir Putin has granted Russian citizenship to NSA whistleblower Edward Snowden. Russia's TASS news agency confirmed on Monday the American's name was included without fanfare on a list of 72 foreigners who became citizens. Snowden, who applied for citizenship in 2020 upon receiving permanent residency rights, has not commented on the decision. As of Monday evening, Moscow time, his wife will also apply for citizenship, according to Snowden's lawyer. So, congratulations to Edward Snowden. That's my first comment. But when I think of Snowden, I just can't help of thinking of Assange. And I just think to myself, if only Assange would have chosen a different direction to flee towards. I understand why he didn't want to go towards Russia, because of the fact that the deep state and the Clinton machine, they were branding WikiLeaks and Snowden as some sort of that car almost like smashed right into me. They were branding WikiLeaks and Snowden as some sort of Russian assets, state-sponsored by Russia. And so I can understand why Assange said, no, I'm not going to go to Russia, because that'll just reinforce the deep state Clinton machine narrative about me. But, you know, you just can't help but think, if only he had chosen to travel towards Russia instead of the direction that he went to. Anyway, that is the news with regards to Edward Snowden. He will become a Russian citizen, as will his girlfriend, his wife, not his girlfriend, his wife. And I believe this was his girlfriend from the U.S., and I believe she also moved to Russia to be with Mr. Snowden. They got married, and now they're going to be Russian citizens. Interesting. Interesting turn of events, isn't it? With Snowden, his life trajectory is very, very interesting. So the referendum. Let me just give some numbers on the referendum. Where we are today: LPR, Lugansk at 83.61%, Donetsk at 86.89%, Zaporozhye at 66.43%, and Kherson at 63.58%. That is where we are with regards to the referendum. So 50% plus means that the referendums are going to go through. Each region has gotten well over 50%. And so I think it's crystal clear. The die is cast. These regions will undoubtedly become part of the Russian Federation. And come October 1st, we are going to see what move the collective West and Ukraine makes. We have news that Zelensky is actually fighting again now with the commander of the Ukrainian armed forces, Zelensky, because Zelensky desperately wants another Hopkov type victory to show his collective West puppet masters that he's making progress, and he is ordering Zelensky to throw everything the Ukraine military has towards Krasny Liman to get some sort of victory. And Zelensky is telling Zelensky, look, we are suffering horrific losses. We can't keep on doing this. But Zelensky is dead set on having some sort of repeat media victory to show everybody in the West. And he is ordering Zelensky, just keep on throwing whatever you have at Krasny Liman. We got to get some sort of a breakthrough. But, you know, I think to myself, you know, all of this back and forth and fighting in villages like Krasny Liman it's out the window come October 1st. It all changes, because you're going to be talking about the Russian military and the Russian Federation and Russian territory and the conflict with Russia proper. I mean, everything everything changes come October 1st. So, I understand why Zelensky wants this media win, and he's pushing Zelensky to give him this media win. But come October 1st, we have a huge paradigm shift, and Ukraine's going to have to adjust to that paradigm shift with regards to this conflict in Ukraine. So, with that being said, let's do a clown world. And this clown world has to do with VK, V-Contacte. Now, V-Contacte was actually started by the same brothers that Russian brothers, I believe they're from St. Petersburg, that have Telegram, and they started V-Contacte as well. V-Contacte was the Facebook equivalent for Russia, the Facebook alternative for Russia, and it's part of a bigger company. I believe it's part of the Mail.ru company, and I'm not sure if they're connected to Yandex as well. But anyway, they have a lot of apps, a lot of sites, and assets that they run. They have V-Contacte, VK Music, and Messenger, and Mail.ru, and just a whole ecosystem, a whole social networking, messaging ecosystem that they run. And I don't think the brothers that have Telegram, Pavel Durov, I believe, and his brother, I think they sold all of these assets a while ago, but they got out of the business. But the Russian company that has all these assets, from what I'm understanding, they're saying that the Apple Store has cut them off. They've been removed from the Apple App Store. I guess because they're Russian. Now, the company that has all of these applications, V-Contacte, and these other applications, they've asked Apple for some sort of clarification. What is going on? Have you really removed us? And I'm making this video in the morning, and so I don't know if Apple has responded, or if this removal was temporary, or if this is a permanent ban, or if this was a mistake. But at the moment, it looks like the Apple App Store has removed applications simply because they are Russian. Social network applications, messaging applications, email, Mail.ru email, and stuff like that. Because they are Russian, it looks like they've been removed from the Apple App Store, which would mean that sooner or later, if this is true, if this was a deliberate action, then it means that Android is going to follow. So much for free speech, human rights, freedom of information, all of those things that we hear for the collective West. So much for all of those things. It becomes even more important for countries to create their own ecosystems when it comes to information and technology. When you see stuff like this, if you're Russia, if you're China, if you're India, if you're any country really, if you have the means and resources, you begin to understand why it's so super important to create your own information, software, operating system if you can, technology and ecosystems. All right, that's the video. The Bic pens and Bic razors. I don't know if you saw the van next to me. That was a Bic van. Anyway, I'm going to end it there, everybody. The Duran.locals.com and Rumble, ODYSEE, BitChute, and Telegram. Check out Alexander's channel. Check out the Duran's channel. 10% off from the Duran shop. I am signing out. Take care.